2026 by saying, I told you so, but I told you so. If only the bedwetters in the Liberal Party had listened, instead of, again, relying on the counsel of the leftist, out-of-touch Canberra press gallery. I wrote on March 13, 2025, the day Susan Lee was elected leader, that she is Malcolm Turnbull in a skirt with a track record of mediocrity and inauthenticity. I wrote, the last thing the country needs is more groupthink, and it's hard to see how we will get anything other than that with Susan Lee, who is consistently on the wrong side of issues. From her numerology frolics to flip-flopping on consequential issues, Lee has a track record for being weak and flaky, and that's precisely what we got again this week, with the Libs rolling over on the so-called hate speech laws. That was the final straw. Susan Lee has to go. The Liberal Party's repeated betrayals of the Conservative base forced the dissolution of the coalition. The Nationals, who voted against these draconian laws, walked away from the coalition, who have sunk to new lows, and not just in the opinion polls. What should have been a moment that defined the Liberals as principled defenders of free speech instead saw them roll over again. There is
Labor's crackdown on hate speech has been dealt a blow. The coalition refusing to back new laws, calling the current proposal unsalvageable. Now, a leading Jewish organisation has intervened, pleading with the opposition to reconsider.
And this was interesting because the Jews were prepared to settle for less. But this was, look, the gaslighting that was going on before this bill got voted in is unbelievable. I believed Susan Lee when she said that the bill was unsalvageable.
Prime Minister wants to rally the country and the Parliament against hate speech.
This should be a moment of national unity.
But unity is proving elusive.
From what we have seen so far, it looks pretty unsalvageable.
Susan Lee is unsatisfied.
That's where she let everyone down, because she backflipped, completely backflipped.
something truly sinister about the Australian Uniparty using an Islamist terror attack at Bondi Beach to pass far-reaching legislation that diminishes the rights of ordinary Australians, including the ability to robustly criticise Islamism, mass migration and the lack of assimilation from certain ethnic groups. Here is legal academic Dr Joanna Howe with her thoughts on this legislation. I spoke to her earlier in the week. What are the dangers of this legislation?
Rita, in my 15 years as a legal academic, I've never seen a piece of legislation more terrifying and threatening to Australia's democracy. On the weekend, the Albanese government said that they were ditching the hate speech elements of the law, the anti-vilification provisions. But what we found out today at 10 a.m. when it was publicly released is that they had inserted some of the worst elements of this bill into the definition section in 114. And so what this means is the bill actually criminalises hurt feelings. So if someone in the target group has hurt feelings, experiences fear as a result of somebody else, another Australian, criticising, let's say, immigration from Islamic countries, and that's a very reasonable position to take, given that these Islamic countries are not democratic, they do not allow freedom of speech or freedom of religion. Christians are persecuted in these countries, and in fact, in these countries, women are severely oppressed. So if an ordinary Australian criticises that, under these new provisions, if a Muslim member of the Australian community feels fear, then that person is a member of a hate group and they could go to jail for 15 years. This bill will lead to ordinary, innocent, law-abiding Australians being sent to jail, which is something that should never happen in a Western democracy.
For the Libs, it must be clear now, even to the bedwetters, that Susan Lee's disastrous reign as opposition leader has been marked with gross ineptitude, poor political judgment and an inability to lay a glove on Labor, even as the government lurches from one crisis to the next. Labor may be floundering, but it's the coalition that has plummeted to record low poll numbers, with the latest news poll showing their primary vote sitting on 21%, for the first time trailing One Nation on 22%. The news poll follows a Demos poll earlier in the month that had the coalition's primary vote tied with One Nation on 23%. That poll also showed the coalition trailing Labor 52 to 48% in the two-party preferred figures, while One Nation and Labor were tied 50-50 in two-party preferred figures. We could ultimately see the formation of a new Conservative coalition in this country, with One Nation and the Nationals coming together if the Liberals insist on being completely unelectable Labor-like quislings.
It's been 48 hours since David Littleproud hit eject. Prominent former Nationals leaders in disbelief.
We do not have an effective opposition at the moment. That must be righted as quickly as possible.
John Anderson led the Nats from 99 to 2005. Speaking exclusively to 7 News, he warns splitting the coalition is a huge mistake.
There's a tinge of fear. I'm afraid. I'll admit that. I am really concerned about where this country is going.
Despite this, the Nationals are determined to go their own way.
We will now have spokespeople across all portfolios,
revealing draft details of their own front bench. It's not technically a shadow cabinet. That's reserved for the official opposition party. But spokespeople will be appointed across traditional portfolio areas. Matt Canavan is expected to become a Treasury spokesman. Another Queensland Senator, Susan McDonald, also tipped for a top job.
We're all strong, fiercely independent people in the sense that we want to represent and be a loud voice for regional Australia.
As drama consumes the Liberals, Andrew Hastie and Angus Taylor both counting their numbers, needing to win over a majority of their party room's 51 members if there's a leadership challenge. Senior Liberal sources have told me Andrew Hastie is leading Angus Taylor with numbers in the 20s. But Conservatives hope there's a deal first, saving two members of the right from running against one another.
The Prime Minister's character has been found wanting over Bondi. There is no getting around that. They should be held to account. An effective coalition is the best way to do that.
Susan Lee is today fighting to hold on to her job after the coalition split for the second time in just 8 months. The Liberal Party is reeling, but this afternoon the opposition leader is adamant she will survive. Isabel Mullen has more from Parliament House.
Well, the big question everyone is asking here in Canberra this afternoon is how long can Susan Lee hold on to her job? That job made even harder by David Littleproud, the leader of the Nationals, essentially pulling the pin, blowing up the coalition after Susan Lee accepted the resignations of 3 of his senators. National senators voting against the federal government's new hate speech laws, insisting they were a threat to freedom of speech. It triggered the resignation of the entire National Party front bench. David Littleproud saying the Nationals will not return to a coalition led by Susan Lee.
My leadership. In trouble. Will you survive as leader?
Yes, I will.
Will you be leader this time next month?
Yes, I will. And I'm backed by my Liberal Party and the decisions that I've made to date.
Members of the Liberal Party are furious at David Littleproud, blaming him for the split. The coalition blowing itself up for the second time in 8 months.
You can't trust these people. It was Susan Lee that blew it up. She told us that she wasn't going to go along with this thing, and she backflipped and betrayed Australians, and she betrayed the people that she was leading.
Handing Anthony Albanese another political gift. The Nationals leader digging in earlier today.
And she has effectively disbanded the coalition. It's over. And that's not what we wanted to do. But I can sleep tonight, and did last night, very well knowing that we did everything we could to keep this coalition together.
Now, unless Susan Lee steps aside, the first possible date for a leadership challenge is February 3. That's the next party room meeting, leaving the opposition leader with just 10 days to convince her colleagues she's right for the job.
She's not right for the job.
Take any responsibility for the collapse of the coalition?
Breaking her silence on the big coalition breakup.
The door is open from my point of view. I just want to say the door is not closed. The coalition is always stronger when it is together.
Susan Lee striking a markedly different tone to David Littleproud.
Susan Lee broke the coalition when she accepted those 3 resignations.
The opposition leader accepted resignations tendered by 3 Nationals frontbenchers who'd broken the rules of shadow cabinet solidarity by voting against new hate crimes laws in the Senate. The Nationals revolted, severing ties with the Liberals and demanding the removal of Susan Lee.
Will you survive as leader?
Yes, I will.
Digging in and deflecting questions about leadership rivals Andrew Hastie and Angus Taylor.
They're strong, committed members of my team.
As Liberals vent their anger with the Nationals for blowing up the coalition over laws drafted in response to a terror attack.
It's very hard for me to understand why they didn't see the bigger picture here, which is about protecting our community from neo-Nazis, from radical Islamists and from hate preachers.
Matt Canavan was pivotal in pushing the Nationals to oppose the laws, even though he admits he knows little about the groups in line to be banned, including the neo-Nazi National Socialist Network and Islamists Hizb ut-Tahrir.
I myself have not delved into the depths of either of that organisation or the right-wing organisation.
Hey, good to see you again.
Another leader revelling in his opponent's misery.
They made a decision to politicise this issue. They have essentially played politics on themselves.
For now, Susan Lee's working out what to do with a Liberal-only shadow ministry while trying to shore up her own job. But it might be too late. Supporters of Andrew Hastie and Angus Taylor are already hitting the phones, canvassing support among colleagues. There's a sense that the status quo can't remain, and some are agitating to bring this to a head, possibly as early as next week. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
Do you think Susan Lee or David Littleproud are going to survive as leaders of their now warring parties?
There's a big question mark hanging over both leaders, I think it's fair to say. Susan Lee's been under pressure. She's never been in a strong position as leader, having won with a very thin majority when she took over from Peter Dutton after that election, that thumping election loss. and her numbers have probably gone south since then. She lost a few when outgoing senators left who had supported her. But as you say, we've had two now breakdowns of the coalition. The first one was a fleeting sort of affair. This one feels like it is more structural and probably more damaging for her. With Parliament resuming on February 3rd, which is less than a fortnight away, I think there's a very real prospect that she's going to face some sort of challenge at that time.
And we have invited Susan Lee on the program. However, she has declined. I think she's declined quite a few times this week. Now, Mark, how much of an influence do you think One Nation has had, not just on the events of this week, but really the events of the past 3 or so months in federal politics?
Yeah, I think one...
Still licking their wounds from that ugly split with the National Party, the Liberals now appear poised to swing the axe on Susan Lee. For now, members are biding their time, but several contenders are getting ready to enter the leadership race.
Andrew Hastie does an interview on the run, literally, but won't say if he's really running.
Are you up for it? For the leadership?
Look, I'm not going to comment on the leadership. I want to keep my thoughts private.
7 News' Jeff Parry determined to chase down answers.
Well, it suggests that you've already got the numbers.
There are a lot of suggestions out there.
As leadership rival and fellow Conservative Angus Taylor, back from his European holiday, outlines a leadership manifesto in the Sunday papers. His supporters making clear, having run for the leadership after the election, he would again now. 7 News can reveal Liberal faction leaders now agree Susan Lee has lost the numbers. Many urging Angus Taylor and Andrew Hastie to decide themselves which should be the Conservative candidate.
Will you be talking to Angus Taylor about it, trying to come to some solution for this problem?
I'll give you the same answer, and I won't be talking about party matters.
Conservatives hope Susan Lee will eventually agree to stand aside and allow the sort of orderly leadership transition the Liberals recently orchestrated at state levels in New South Wales and Victoria. 7 News can reveal senior Conservatives are discussing a plan to present Susan Lee with conclusive evidence that she has lost the party's backing, a list of names of members and senators who would not support her, hoping she will stand aside. The only remaining detail, when.